Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph Ayala, one of your career coaches here at CSUN. And today we're going to talk about effective meeting structure. As you graduate from CSUN and go off to start your careers, there's going to be many opportunities where you are going to be leading meetings. You will schedule meetings with your teams, you might be part of a team, and it's really important that you have the correct structure in order that everyone in that meeting gets the most out of it and that you actually make progress and have a plan going forward. So, today we're going to talk about effective meeting structure and some strategies around how to accomplish that as you enter the workforce. These types of group meetings are often dreaded by group members. Take it from me, I sit in meetings every day, and some of them are great, and others to me just feel like a waste of time. And if you were to survey other people at different companies, they would feel probably the exact same way. And the reason for that is that a lot of times these meetings lack focus. You're going into the meeting, there's not a clear goal. And so it's a lot of chatter without a lot of substance, without a lot of what are we doing here to accomplish. And for people who are going into those meetings, it really makes them feel that they are wasting their time. Remember, when you are in a company, there's so much going on. People have so much that they want to accomplish. And when they see a meeting on their calendar, they want it to be worth their time. And so, really, one of the things that people will say if you surveyed them as to why they don't like going to meetings is that some of these meetings lack focus, lack direction. They appear to be unproductive, right? Once again, without a clear goal, it's just people talking to each other without really moving anything forward, without really people saying, what is our goal of this meeting? So, because of that, people feel that that time is just wasted. Again, I want to be clear that some meetings people will enjoy going to. There's always a need to have meetings in the companies that you're going to work for because things need to get done. People need to be aligned. It's very rare that you're going to be in a position where you're going to work all by yourself on a project. Many times there's interdependencies where you have to work together and understand what other team members are doing so that you come up with that deliverable that meets everyone's expectations. So meetings are going to be important. It's just that when we have group meetings, if they lack focus, if they appear unproductive, that's when people are not going to want to go to that type of to meeting. And the third one is a lack of follow through, meaning at the end of the meeting, there's nothing there clear assignments as to what the path forward is. I will tell you that I've been in meetings where there's something that I think is very important that is being discussed, and everyone is very enthusiastic about the meeting. Everyone understands that it's important. Everyone understands there's a problem that we need to work through, and everyone's talking about it. And then the time comes up for the meeting to be over because everyone has to go to the next meeting. And they say, okay, great. It was a great, thank you for talking today. It was a great conversation. Have a good rest of the day. And I sit there thinking, but what's next? What's next to move this forward? Are we having a follow-up call? Are people assigned to handle certain tasks or to do certain things or to call people or to create a deliverable? And so when you walk away from that, it really feels like nothing was accomplished. Tied to lack of follow through is when someone says, okay, thank you for meeting today. We're going to, I'll send out some meeting notes and we'll set up a meeting in 2 weeks to see where we're at. And then nothing ever gets scheduled after that. I've been in that situation before and it's really, really frustrating. So that lack of follow through also is dreaded by group members. And for me, if that person then wants to starts a new project out and invites me to the meeting, I'm immediately thinking, why do I want to go to this meeting if I already know there's not going to be any follow through? right? I go into it already with a negative impression of what that meeting's going to be about. And that's not the situation we want to be in. So today we're going to talk about how do we get past these roadblocks and put effective meeting techniques in place so when people go to the meetings that you host, that they will find them productive, worth their time, and meaningful. Because group meetings can really be a great asset if planned properly and administered properly. And these are skills that can be taught. The first key area to make sure that your meeting goes well is to be prepared, just like anything else, right? Preparation always seems to be the key. You want to give appropriate notice to those involved. Now, what's appropriate notice? What's the definition of appropriate notice? That really is based upon the company culture that you're working in. I will tell you that in a previous company I worked in, it was very common for people to place a meeting on your calendar that was for the very next day. Very common. That's just what the culture was. And how did I learn that? Because when I went into the company, I started seeing people add things to my calendar just 1 or 2 days out. And so I learned just by observation, okay, the norm is that appropriate notice in this company is even 1 to 2 days, very small window. The company I currently work for, usually what I've learned is appropriate notice is about a week out. They give you about a week's time as they place something on your calendar. So again, I learned that by coming into this company, and right away, people would place things on my calendar to have a meeting with me, and it would be about a week out. That was the norm for the company I work in. You will learn the norm as you get to the companies that you're going to work in, and then follow that definition of appropriate notice to get those people involved in your meeting. Include only people who are relevant to the discussion. When you have too many people involved in the discussion, sometimes it bogs the group down and you don't get a lot done. And so what you want to do is really think about what are we going to try and get accomplished in this meeting? Who are the decision makers or the main people that this is going to impact? And involve those people in that initial discussion. Now, it could be that you decide that there's other people who have to be notified of the outcome of the meeting. That's fine. That can all be done as an email to those other people. They don't have to be a decision maker in the process. So the key is who are the key decision makers and include those people who are relevant to the discussion. And usually there's very few key decision makers as you're leading these calls. And also think about, are there key people that even if they're not a decision maker, this process or this discussion will highly impact their team in the company. And if you find those people, also bring them to the table. But there's going to be a bunch of other people who just need to be notified of the decision. Again, that can be done as an email, as a summary. They don't have to be part of that discussion. It'll make it more rich. It'll make it more appealing to the people if they know that they're going into a meeting with the decision makers because they'll feel like this, we have the right people involved and we're going to get something accomplished. Always identify a purpose for the meeting. When you're creating the meeting invite, and also in the beginning of the meeting, it's always important to say our goal of the meeting today is. So our goal of this meeting next week is to ensure that is to come to an alignment as to what we're going to do for the company sales kickoff next year. The goal of this next meeting is to decide our 3 key messages we want our sales team to talk to our new customers about, right? The goal of this meeting is to decide if we're going to allow employees to work from home. So you're always keeping everything focused. So even in the meeting invite, you want to identify the purpose for the meeting. You want to reiterate that at the beginning of the meeting. So everyone's going in with the alignment of this is what we're going to get out of the meeting. Distribute an agenda before the meeting, and this does not need to be a formal agenda. What I mean by a formal agenda is you don't have to have it written out in a Word document with a template and all of these things. You can if you want. I will tell you that most companies do not expect you to attach a formal written Word document agenda to a meeting invite. It's been years and years since I've seen that ever happen. What typically you can do is when you are sending out the meeting invite, just in the body of the email invite, you can say the goal of the meeting is to discuss if we should allow people to continue working from home. And then you can simply say, we will discuss the following three items: the current number of employees who work from home versus the ones that work on site. Number two, any office space restrictions that we should take into account if having people move back to the office. Number three, a communication plan that we can put in place to let the employees know of the new policy, right? Everyone then, as they're thinking about the meeting ahead of time, will already be thinking of ideas. So when they come to the meeting, they're already have ideas ready to go. It'll make the meeting much more effective and efficient. Now, during the meeting, you then have the meeting, you want to start promptly and end on time. This is key that you're able to do this. It's a skill that you need to be able to develop. Having the agenda will help, especially if, for example, you have a 30-minute meeting and you're going to discuss three different things. Maybe on that informal agenda, if you have three items, you simply say allocate 7 minutes to each item, 7, 14, 21. The reason you don't want to do 10, 10, 10 is you're giving no room for any flexibility of any of the conversations going over, which always happens. But if you do 7, 7, 7, you're giving yourself some additional bandwidth to be able to play with any of the items that might need more discussion. It allows you to have time at the end to talk about next steps, things like that. You will find as you enter the professional workplace that a lot of people have back-to-back meetings. And I see this happen all the time. We might have a meeting scheduled from 10:30 to 11. And then people on their calendar might have a meeting scheduled immediately at 11. If the facilitator goes over the time limit and it's already past 11, you will immediately see people type in the chat, sorry, I have to drop to another meeting, and they drop out. And what happens is they miss the ending part of the meeting, which in many times is the most important part, because that's a lot of times where you are discussing the next steps forward or recapping what happened in the meeting. So it's really important that you start promptly, that you monitor the time and end on time. Now, if you are coming up against that time limit and you still know there's a lot to discuss because that meeting ended up really into a much bigger discussion than was planned, instead of trying to crunch everything in at the end or having people drop off and not hearing the rest of the meeting, one thing you can say is, I can see that we only have 2 minutes left in the allocated time for today. I will schedule a follow-up meeting so that we can finish this discussion. That's a much more effective way of doing it than trying to just squish everything in at the end. Always assign someone to take notes, and it may just be you. Typically, what you're going to find is the person who hosts the meeting needs to be the one to take the notes. Gone are the days where you have a secretary or an administrative assistant sitting in the meeting who's designated to take notes. That doesn't happen anymore. I shouldn't say doesn't happen. Very rarely are you going to be in that situation where someone is going to be in the meeting where their sole responsibility is to take notes. So you will either take the notes yourself, or you might ask one of the other team members to take notes. But either way, the expectation is that you as the host are also taking the notes. Use an appropriate discussion model. This doesn't have to be outwardly defined, meaning you don't have to tell everyone this is the discussion model we're going to use today. But what it means is that in your mind, you need to be the facilitator of that meeting. Is the appropriate discussion model going to be that you're going to have people ask questions during the meeting? Are they going to post questions in the chat, maybe if it's an online meeting? Are they going to, do you want them to wait for questions at the end of each section or at the end of the meeting? Right? That's an appropriate discussion model. How is that going to work? And you want to, in the beginning, just kind of let them know that. I'm going to walk through 3 things today. It'd be great if you just hold your questions to the end of each section, because I've allocated a couple of minutes at the end of each section for any clarifications or questions you have. Or feel free to ask questions along the way, because I want to make sure that we are all aligned at every step of this meeting. So don't feel, shy or anything. If you have any questions, just raise your hand and let's just hammer it out at the time that you have the question. Okay, so just making sure that you have that there is important. And then hold people accountable to the discussion model. If part of your model is that you guys are brainstorming for ideas for a solution, meaning that you want everyone's opinion to come through and just people to just shout out answers because you're trying to really dig into what we need to do going forward, and you really need as many ideas as possible. If someone then says an idea and someone else immediately shoots it down and says, oh, no, that's not going to work, you want to hold people accountable to your discussion model by maybe saying, well, we're not going to judge any ideas right now. The point of this meeting is really to brainstorm as many ideas as we can so that we can discuss them later on. Or if your discussion model is that people are supposed to hold their questions to the end, and in the very beginning, people start asking questions, again, you want to say, those are great questions. I'm going to probably address some of them throughout my presentation. So let's hold on to those at the end in case one of those questions is not answered during my presentation today. Right? So you're holding each other accountable for that. You want to work on the plan and assign owners. This is really key. As you're going through steps, many times in meetings, you'll hear something like, I'll make up an example. We should really, let's say you're planning the company's annual sales kickoff meeting where all of the sales teams comes together. Many companies do this once a year. It's a big event and involves a lot of people. Many times everyone travels to one location. So let's say we're having this meeting and someone says, oh, we really should have fireworks. Everyone's like, oh, that's a great idea. Then they move to the next section. And what hotel should we have the meeting at? Pause. You guys thought that fireworks would be a great idea. Does someone who wants to take ownership of that and contact different companies that do fireworks, see if we're legally able to do it, what the price will be? Who can take ownership of that? John? Okay, great. I'll put your name down on that. Right? That's part of the plan. Because if you don't assign owners, what the meeting turns out to be is a lot of great ideas with no action behind it. And that is something you don't want. Ensure the group comes to a conclusion, even if it's a future plan. So always save time at the end of the call to say, okay, let's just summarize what we've decided to do today. We've decided that we're going to have our meeting in Washington, D.C. We're thinking we either want it at the Hilton or the Marriott Hotel. We think it'd be awesome to have the fireworks, and we want to do one group activity, maybe a trip to one of the museums. Did I miss anything? Oh, you're right. We will also want to have one really nice dinner at like a really cool, trendy restaurant right in the middle of DC. Thank you for reminding me of that. Let me write that down. Okay, everyone. Now, our plan is that I'm going to send out these meeting notes to everyone. Everyone, your name will be next to each item if you're assigned to that. So make sure you take a look and see what you own. And we're going to meet again in 2 weeks, where each of you will provide a status as to what to your item to let us know where you're at in that part of the planning meeting. And if you have any questions within the next 2 weeks, just reach out to me directly so that we can get them resolved, so that in 2 weeks, when you come to the meeting, you're prepared to give a readout to the rest of the group. Does that all sound great? Okay, good. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thank you. Right? Come together, come to a conclusion. And again, tied back to that, review and confirm everyone knows the next steps and who owns the items. The best way to do that is to send the summary out as an email afterwards. And I would also suggest that when you do that, in the email, say, if I've assigned you to something that you feel you should not be the owner of, please let me know immediately so I can assign someone else to that item. That's really important because you don't want things to be stalled because someone didn't reach out and say, that's not mine. So someone may not be working on it, so no one would be working on it, right? So it's important that you give them the feeling that if they need something reassigned, that it's okay to do so, because at least you can keep the project moving forward. Here are some behaviors to avoid. Hold unnecessary meetings, meaning do not hold unnecessary meetings. Only hold meetings when items cannot be resolved via email or other ways. Or can you make the decision on your own? So, for example, again, everyone's calendar is full. And if you place a lot of items on people's calendars for meetings, what it prevents them from doing is actually doing the work, because they're stuck in meetings. They can't make phone calls. They can't send emails to work on the things that they need to accomplish. It just negatively affects everyone. And so there could be things that you can just resolve via email. Let's say let's go back to this sales kickoff meeting that we're planning for Washington, D.C. Maybe what they're trying to think about is the different type, the two debating between the two hotels. And the challenge is that they're trying to figure out if people could use if we could use reward points and to be able to book some of these things. You may not have to have a big meeting to do that. That could be a simple email saying, I'm working with the hotels. They want to know if we should have the employees be able to gain reward points for their stay, even though the company is paying for the room. And then someone through email can simply say, yes, that sounds like a great idea, or no, company policy would not allow that. Right? In 10 seconds, they got their answer. We don't have to wait for the follow-up meeting to ask that question. They now have their answer via email. They can move forward with the hotel. And the other thing is, can you just make the decision on your own? Not everything has to be a group decision. Remember, when you assign owners to different items, what you are saying to them is, you are the owner. I trust that you're going to make the best decision. And so let's go back to that meeting. You assign someone to own the fireworks. So you're working on the fireworks because you own it. And you talk to the fireworks company and they say, we can either do a big show that looks like the colors of the company, or we can do another one that's just all of these different rainbow colors and it's really flashy. And you're thinking, wow, I better go back to the team and ask them what they want to do. But maybe you can just make that decision on your own. They've entrusted you as the owner to make the best decision. So it's okay to sometimes say, you know what, I own this part of this project. I'm going to make the decision that I think is best based upon what I think would be best for the organization, right? You are in the position that you are in because people trust in your decision-making abilities. So trust yourself, make decisions that are smart, use educated guesses. The next behavior to avoid is to invite everyone. We talked about this earlier. Can you provide a status after the meeting to other stakeholders? Right? It's a lot easier to manage a smaller group and then to let everybody else know what the summary or the conclusions are of the plan. Do not let people dominate the discussion. Just because someone is the loudest in a meeting doesn't mean that they have the best ideas. Sometimes even the quietest people have the best ideas. You just have to allow them to speak. So when you are leading a meeting, it's up to you to allow everyone's voice to be heard. Because what I have found is when you allow everyone's voice to be heard, the outcome of the meeting usually is not just what one person wanted, but a combination of everyone's. Someone might bring up an idea and someone else says, oh, that's a great idea. And in addition to that, what if we also do this? And someone says, oh, that's really good. Let's just combine the two ideas together. That makes it so much better. But if you just let someone dominate the discussion, what you're going to get is a solution based upon that one person's experience and perspective, which may be a good one, but it may not be the best. So allow everyone to participate. Do not allow the discussion to wander from the topic. This is what's called scope creep. So for example, if we talk about that sales kickoff meeting that we're trying to plan for the company, we're in the meeting and someone starts to say, so this is for the sales kickoff. Maybe we should also think about what we want to do for the company holiday party too. Should we also do it in Washington, D.C., or should we be looking at other cities? Okay, that's a good question. Let's table that for another day. I really want to focus on what we're going to do for our sales kickoff. Let's get that nailed down first. And then maybe once we have that resolved, we can work on the next event. But let's really try and focus on this, right? Nothing will get done if you allow the scope creep to come in. So make sure that you are that person who's able to bring everyone back to the topic. And the other behavior to avoid, remember, these are all things to avoid. So avoid holding unnecessary meetings, avoid inviting everyone, avoid letting people dominate the discussion, avoid allowing the discussion to wander from the topic, and avoid failure to act on decisions made. That's why it's so important to assign owners, and not just to assign owners, but make sure there's a follow-up plan. Make sure that you're saying in 2 weeks, in 1 week, we're going to come back together and you're going to each do a readout of the items that you were an owner for to let us know the status of your items. Okay, so by doing that, you're holding people accountable. People know what they're responsible for. And when you do have peer-to-peer accountability, which means all the team members are accountable to each other to make something work and to reach that goal, you will find that you have much better results. So in summary, Start promptly and end on time. And this specifically goes for you as the leader of the meeting. I have been in so many meetings where, let's say it starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and everyone joins, and the person who set up the meeting is late. You don't want to be that person, right? It shows that maybe you're not prepared, that you're not, people will feel you're not respecting their time. So make sure you start promptly. As the owner of the meeting, you should log in a couple of minutes prior to be able to greet everyone as they're coming onto the call. And then end on time, because that's very important, because people will start dropping off. They will not stay on many times past the scheduled time because they have other meetings they have to go to. You don't want them to drop off early because they're going to miss out on the most important aspect of the meeting, which is here's our path going forward and here's the assignments for those tasks. So make sure you start on time, end on time. Always assign someone to take notes, but also assume that you're going to be the one who has to do that. Use an appropriate discussion model. Are we brainstorming today so everyone's going to throw their ideas out? Are we going to have people ask questions as we move along? Are we going to have 3 different speakers and this is who's speaking first, second, third? And hold people accountable to that discussion model. Reinforce it as you're going through the presentation and that meeting. Work on a plan and assign owners along the way and always verify it. So when you are assigning something out, let's say for those fireworks, and you say, and John says, "Oh yeah, that sounds so great, I'll do it." You say, "Okay, so I'm going to put John, so I can put you down as the owner." Get verbal confirmation from John that he says, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and work on it." Because he might say, "Well, actually, it's a great idea, but I just won't have the time to do it. I'm so busy in this other project. Can someone else do it?" And then you might have Sylvia say, "You know what? I can go ahead and take that on. I can do that. I haven't done it before. I don't know much about fireworks, but I can look it up." Great, Sylvia, thanks for stepping up. I'll have you assign it instead. Assigned to it instead. And then ensure the group comes to a conclusion, even if it's a future plan. And the way that you do that is to review and confirm that everyone knows the next step and who owns any items. So I hope that as we go through this summary today, that you've learned some tips and tricks on how to be an effective leader when it comes to managing meetings. You will have to do this many times throughout your career. You will get better at it as you go along, and people will really appreciate that you are inviting them to meetings that are meaningful, that have a goal, that have conclusions, that have a plan, and that ensures that everyone is aligned when it comes to any project that you might be working on. I hope that you have a good rest of the day, and thank you for listening.